When March comes, I think it was the board meeting that was probably the largest attended board meeting that I've ever seen, standing room only. Very contentious in relationship to the coffee side, the Bradshaw side. I will never forget the vote. It was a vote that went up, and I will never forget the fact that this one board member, who's on our board right now, his daughters went to coffee and did not want the consolidation to occur. I will never forget when he raised his hand, and of course they had enough votes to make it go, the feeling in that room. It was as if some of them felt that an air went out of a balloon. Dr. Behrens knew what she had to do as a superintendent at that time, made the recommendation, it went forth, and then that started a whole year of things in terms of preparation for the consolidation itself.
So as we talked about consolidating the two high schools, obviously they were rivals. So you had the Coffee Yellow Jackets and the Bradshaw Bruins. A lot of emotional feeling there. We went to both schools. We went through all the resources we had, determined, what each had and, how we'd move forward on that. So when the decision was made, we actually moved for Bradshaw to become Florence High School, Coffee to become a middle school, and initially the 9th grade was there for the first freshman center. New concept, and we talked about some names, and when it came down to it, Florence Middle, Florence Freshman Center, and Florence High School we thought was the way to go instead of having some kind of gimmicky name, and I think it's carried us very well.
There was some apprehension, of course, as well as anticipation and excitement, but both schools have been in existence for a long time and had quite the delegation behind both schools. So just in thinking about merging those two, where would be the campus and those kind of things, and who would lead those and who would teach what subjects and who would coach what sports, those were all questions that were floating around in people's minds, of course, during that time.
I was a student at Coffee High School from 2000 to 2004. When I graduated, I was part of the last graduating class of Coffee High School. We knew going into our senior year that everything we did would be the last time Coffee did those things. And so I remember leading up to that decision being made, there was a lot of tension, there was a lot of conversation, a lot of strong opinions, a lot of heated debates. The students got to be a part of it. I remember Dr. Behrens, she came to Coffee and she listened to student groups with our opinions. And then she would take those, I guess, and factor those into her decision and what she recommended to the board.
Being on the school board during that time, even though tough, was an exciting time because we were able to bring career technical back to the campus. It hadn't been there in many years. We were able to ramp up all the arts, band, choir, drama. I had great opportunity to reach out, and I'll have to say one thing that I remember about consolidation was those students were the leaders. It wasn't the parents. I'm not criticizing parents, but those students engaged and made it what it was, and I feel like we made the right decision for the long term. And I think if we look at the things that have happened since then with FAFA and there's a new band room going and all those things we've gotten, I think we've got a lot of bang for our buck, and I'm proud to have been a part of that.
To be able to offer that and at one place was the ideal situation. The responsibility fiduciary of the board was to make best use of the public money, and they had to do that.
I will never forget this. The city of Florence, I think it was, hosted a big luncheon for the Coffee and Bradshaw faculties to be able to come together to have some discussion about how this was going to take place and how this was going to transpire. There were a number of focus groups that were brought together to discuss things such as how the alma mater would be created, what types of traditions they would try to take from Bradshaw and merge with Coffee to be able to create Florence traditions. I can remember students wondering, what about homecoming queen? Are we going to have one for Bradshaw and one for Coffee at the first year of Florence? There were students who went to Coffee and Bradshaw that wanted on their report card, on their diploma, the name Coffee High School, graduating from Florence High School in its first year, 2004-2005 school year. There were just a lot of things that were being discussed. I kept trying to reassure students during the course of the year, though, that these are the same students you live in the neighborhood with. These are the same students that you hang out with after school. You may not go to the same high school. You may go to Coffee. You went to Bradshaw for whatever reason, but at the same time, you're still family members. You're still friends. You went to the same elementary schools for all practical purposes. And so as we got ready to build up towards the consolidation itself, those were some of the kinds of things that were going on and some of the discussions that were being had.
Once we knew that it was going to happen, I feel like my class, being the last class at Coffee High School, we just tried to make the best of our last year there and make everything, special. Our homecoming theme, our senior year, was good to the last drop. We had a huge fireworks show at our homecoming game that TNT sponsored for us since it was the last year. We had never done that before. Also, along with that year, we found out, it was right around the time, Remember the Titans was a box office hit, and we found out that the coach was from Florence. He had gone to Coffee, and so that year our whole school got to watch the movie in the auditorium. He came to homecoming that year. So for us, it was a really special year. It was sad because we knew, our school would be no more. But at the same time, it allowed us to really make the best of our last year there.
Who would be in charge? So that was the big concern, and that was what was on both, of course, my mind and Gerald Johnson's mind. He was principal at that time at Coffee, and I was principal at Bradshaw. And so, of course, neither one of us knew what was going to happen because that was the board's decision. Dr. Behrens was leading that and the board's decision. So we had to wait until we were told the process, and then we could either choose to apply for that job or do something else. Following the transition, I became Director of Federal Programs and Transportation at the central office.
I think we made the right decision, and it's amazing since then, the events that I've been to, new adventures for the students. Bravo to our school system. I'm a huge supporter. I was then, I am now. My kids are all grown up, but I certainly support that. I do have a grandchild now back at Forest Hill School.
During the first year, you have growing pains, right? So you had people who wanted to wear their orange and brown. You had those who wanted to wear their black and gold. And so there was, and we're blue and white now. And we've gone from the Bruin and the Yellow Jacket to the Falcons.
There were groups of people that met. There were committees that were formed to help to talk about school colors, to help talk about a mascot, all of that. So there were people from both sides, on Bradshaw and Coffee side, and those people got together and talked, as well as a group of citizens. So it was a pretty big process for people to decide the colors. There were a lot of things talked about. There were some comparisons of other systems that used the same colors as the local university, and to make it a seamless situation all the way from elementary to college. And but that was turned down also. That was discussed and decided that it was best to have our own colors and our own logo and mascot. And so the committee really come up with that. A lot of teachers involved in that on both sides that put their heads together and did some research on the falcon and the meaning of that, and so that's when that was chosen.
The idea that now we're going to have our city be united under one mascot, to me, was kind of promising. The idea that you would have Falcons rather than Yellow Jackets, Bruins, or the Hibbett Hawks, or the Wheaton Lions, or the Forest Hill Rangers, and the different types of things that we had previously. Now we could all come one sound, one voice, the Falcons.
I look back on it with pride. I think now that we've moved forward, the reunions with both the Coffee and Bradshaw folks have gone very well, And we cherish our community, we cherish our school, and I'd say let's not look back, let's look ahead. And I mean, you just have to look at schools and the staff they have and what they do in our community. I couldn't be happier.
It's amazing to look at the progress that the school system has made. The technology that's there is just unbelievable. And I know that students are taking advantage of that through not only the Career Tech program, but also through the Music and Industry program and Fine Arts program. I just see all those things soaring, which is exactly what this was meant to do when the merger happened.
20 years later, I'm proud of what I think we've evolved into as the Florence City Schools based on a merger that took place some 20 years ago, merging Coffee and Bradshaw, when people thought it was going to be, the end of the world because we got rid of what was Coffee and Bradshaw, and not thinking about what we could have if we were to have one focus, which is what we have now.
Looking back, I wish I could have told myself, like, it's going to be okay. And not only is it going to be okay, it's going to be great. You know, we're going to have one school in our community that all of our children feed into from the time they're 4 years old. They're a Falcon from 4 all the way until 12th grade, and that's a great thing. And it has made for strong community spirit, one Florence. So I guess I would have reassured myself that it's going to be okay. And it's a great thing to get to see students start from the time they're little and go all the way up as a Falcon.